Did you know in the first post-COVID research published on summer learning that it was found that children involved in math-focused summer programs tend to score higher on standardized math tests and have higher math grades than other students? This is the year we follow the research and join the growing number of schools that are ordering Summer Pops math workbooks for their kids. Summer Pops is an easy, low-cost, and effective summer math program designed for elementary and middle schools. Summer Pops is not an app. It requires zero screen time for our kids. Many of our listeners have already ordered Summer Pops for this year, giving their students the leg up that they need and giving their parents the support they want. You can visit summerpopsworkbooks.com/research to view the studies yourself and then request your free sample books. See firsthand why more schools are providing Summer Pops for their students. That's summerpopsworkbooks.com. Principal Matters Podcast, episode 389. Hi, friends. This is Will Parker, host of Principal Matters, the School Leaders Podcast, where each week we bring you inspiring, innovative, and imaginative ideas for your own school leadership. This week, we're going to be talking about building systems transformation pathway with my special guest, Naheed Bardai. Naheed Bardai is the principal of UWC Atlantic. He arrived in South Wales in August of 2021 from Upper Canada College in Toronto, where he was head of upper school for 6 years. Before that, he served as Dean of Students and Senior School Principal during his 10 years at the Aga Khan Academy in Mombasa, Kenya. For Principal Naheed Bardai, education is a deeply moral endeavor, and the exercise of leadership demands a thoughtful and ethical foundation. His own values rest on the tenets of pluralism, integrity, generosity, and trust. He holds a bachelor's degree in business administration from the Western University, Canada, a bachelor's degree in education from the University of British Columbia, Canada, a master's of arts from the Institute of Education, University College London, and a master's of educational leadership from Teachers College, Columbia University in the USA. Naheed Bardai, welcome back to Principal Matters Podcast. You were on, back in episode 333, when we talked back then about the introduction of ChatGPT. This time I want to have you on because you've been doing some transformational work. But before we get started, why don't you remind Principal Matters a little bit of what goes on in your world and maybe something they'd be surprised to know about you.
Great question. Great to be back again, and thanks for having me. Lots going on in my world right now. It's a wonderful place to be in, and feel very fortunate to be in the circumstance we are with absolutely wonderful new semi-new cohort of students. We're a 2-year college, so we turn over quite regularly, and so having a new group come in, my family is doing well, and that also is obviously very important to me. And we're on the cusp of something great, I think, in terms of educational progress and innovation, and that's taken me to a couple of different places and a couple of different conversations with different audiences that I've really appreciated and learned from and received really good feedback from. So at this moment in time, things are looking really good.
Well, I'm excited to have this conversation with you today because the first time that we met and talked about ChatGPT, that was my introduction into the work that you're doing at UWC Atlantic. And you told me then, Will, I'm beginning to work on some transformation ideas and pathways that I wanted to bring you back because you've been working a long time on some really innovative programming for your students. But before we go there, I just want to give listeners a little peek into UWC Atlantic's work. So talk a little bit about what are the unique opportunities and offerings that you have for students in the work you're doing right now.
Yeah, so for us, we have just celebrated our 60th anniversary as a school, founded in 1962 by educationalist and philosopher Kurt Hahn. For those who know things like the Duke of Edinburgh or Outward Bound, Gordonston as a school, and then UWC Atlantic. So the movement is comprised of 18 schools and colleges all around the world. Atlantic is the first one, founded during the Cold War on the premise and with the theory of change that if you bring students across Cold War boundaries together to live immersed immersively for 2 years in a place, in a full residential school, that students will begin to understand each other's common humanity and see that what unites is far more than what divides us. And 20 years later, if they see each other across a negotiating table, they would see their common humanity first, and that would help to avert a third world war. And so that was the idea. And in many ways, that has been successful, I think. But of course, there's still much to be done in our world. Today, we have students from 80 different countries, a tremendous socioeconomic diversity. 50% of our students are on some degree of funding, as I say, being part of a powerful network of institutions that are working towards a common cause of a greater peace and sustainability in our world. And it's just a fabulous place to learn and to be a school leader of.
So I have to also let listeners know that I have a common interest in the place where you live. I have a daughter who's going to college in Wales, although not in your part of Wales. And I also recognize that as a school that is an international baccalaureate diploma program school, and as an international school, you have a different setup for the way that students learn with you. Students board in your school versus a lot of the schools that listen to my podcast that may be either U.S. public schools or private or Catholic schools here. And so, Naheed, talk about that for just a little bit. What is the unique perspective that you have as a leader in a school in the kind of setting where you live in the community in which you teach?
Mm-hmm. It's a fully immersive experience. I bring my full self, as do my colleagues bring their full selves to their work every day, as educationalists, but also as people and with their families and what it all entails. And so in that way, it's deeply relational. It's deeply human. It's deeply whole. Right. And so while we offer, as you mentioned, the International Baccalaureate, which is an outstanding sort of international curriculum and qualification that students get pre-university, academically rigorous and diverse in its offerings, but it's also about the whole student. And that for many of us will be the co-curricular component, but it's also very much the socio-emotional. It's about the deep and lasting friendships. It's about the way in which they negotiate difference with one another. They live in rooms of 4, for example, so there are no single or doubles in our residential program. It's all quads. And so in that way, students really are forced to wrestle with what it means to have privacy. What does it mean to share and to share space? What does it mean to engage in deep conversation on a regular basis with people who are different and often from 4 different parts of the world together in a room? What does it mean to be speaking different languages to one another, and all that embodies from a person's past and histories and cultures that they bring. So it's really a unique place in that way. And that oftentimes is the magical sort of mix, you could say. That amount of diversity produces some tremendous opportunities and outcomes for people. And at this time in our world, I think that effort and understanding is needed almost more than ever, with the complexity of challenges that we face collectively as a globe.
Well, and one of the things I admire about your work too is how globally minded you are about the students that you have, because you have students from around the world who are coming to one place for learning, and yet you're consistently thinking about how can we as a school community help connect the learning they're doing here to the work and the learning they're going to be doing for a lifetime. And so this is the part of the conversation, Naheed, where I wanted to just invite listeners to sit back and dream, because you are a dreamer and you're an action taker. And months and months ago, when we first began to talk, you were telling me about the systems transformation pathway that you were working on then, but you have now initiated this new endeavor. And so talk for us a little bit first about what motivated you towards this vision for the future of your school.
So, this work for me started at the college about 2 years ago, but many of the ideas were seeded a bit before that. And it comes from a general dissatisfaction at the state of education, generally speaking, not just, at the college that I'm at, but globally. I think that there is a mismatch between what our young people want and need for their future and what it is that we give them as part of what is a relatively sort of unchanging sort of education over time. And indeed, if we look at the world around us, We look at any sort of demographic trends, whether it be global population increases over time or urban and rural populations, and how they have, changed over time. Whether we look at our carbon output over time, global meat production over time, global plastic production over time, adoption of artificial intelligence over time, registered mobile money accounts over time. All of those changes and those curves are exponential in their orientation. While if you look at the rate of change in education, it's virtually flat. And so the paradox for me is that if we herald education as being one of the most significant, important tools that we have in our toolbox as humanity to be able to address the challenges of our time, then how do we square these things that the rate of change in our world is exponential, but the rate of change in education is virtually flat? So how is it that education then becomes the tool that helps us to be prepared for that future? And indeed, if we look to 2050, when all of our climate targets, for example, are due, we think about the students of today who are our graduates this upcoming year, they'll be in their mid-40s in 2050. So how are we equipping them to manage the challenges of that time, to prepare us to move towards when all of our climate targets are due in 2050? And perhaps even a little bit skeptically, what happens if we miss our climate targets and now we're in the world of 2060, when our students are in their mid-50s and now really in the prime of their careers, leading all of our institutions, universities, NGOs, and so on, governments? How are we helping them to navigate the challenges of that world based on what we equip them with today? So for me, the urgency around the change that is needed is now. It's not 10 years from now or 5 years from now. It's today. And that's been part of the motivation for us. And when I couple that with the purpose of the institution that I have the pleasure of working for, and UWC more broadly, about peace and sustainability, it is motivated with a certain sort of agenda. It's not a neutral sort of act that we're engaging in about the kind of education. It's very purpose driven and values driven, and for me, that's really important as we think about what that future of education, that dream, as you put it, look like.
All right, now I want to talk about how that vision and that idea, and I love how you said that education so often has been flat in its response to the growth that's happening around us. And so as a career educator, but also as someone who's dreaming about what you want school to look like for your students, you have taken the programming that you already have in place, but you're now adding pieces to it that are, I believe it's going to live up to the name, the systems transformation pathways. So talk to us about what that is, Naheed. What is the systems transformation pathway that you've developed for your school? And what is that going to look like for your students?
Yeah, so that's great. So I think the first thing is what was a part of my frustration was that there are lots of really great educators in the world in schools that are trying to do innovative things. I would claim to be the first one to see the problem in this kind of way and to also try to find or make efforts to solve it. Where I've seen things be challenging for educators and institutions is that the systems of education are so stubborn and are so fixed and are so rigid. And so therefore, when people want to innovate, they almost have no choice but to make it an add-on. So it happens in the evenings, it happens on the weekends, often off the back of teachers who are already stretched, who give their time often voluntarily to try and do something different, and students who do the same, give up their time on the weekends and so on to be part of something that they want and that is different. And that can only go on for so long. And we see the impacts in many other ways to our colleagues as well as to our students when we stretch them further. And so for me, it wasn't about adding on, it was about replacing. And so that's the first design piece, I would say, is very much about taking out and putting something else in that was better fit for what we are looking at. So what we ended up doing is, after a bit of conceptualizing and thinking, we arrived at a clear kind of philosophical underpinning for the program. And the philosophical underpinning was about, being true to UWC. If you imagine in your mind sort of a Venn diagram, with the three pieces of that Venn diagram, the three circles being peace, sustainability, and experiential learning. 3 pillars of UWC, but that we often do in silos. And so I said to myself, what would it look like if we took those 3 things and made a Venn diagram out of it? And what would it look like if we took the intersection point of peace, sustainability, and experiential learning and created a new educational program that emanated from that intersection point? And for me, peace means our unequal, unfair, unjust human systems that we've architected over the last 100 years. And sustainability is our damaged natural systems. And so the intersection point of our human and natural systems is an unequivocal truth that we hardly spend any time helping our young people or old people understand the depth and complexity of that space. And we know that the way in which we produce and the way in which we consume, the way in which we pollute, all of those things in the human side impact our natural environment. And our natural systems and environment, they then change and they respond. And when they respond, that has a role and impact back on our human systems. Our tension over scarce resources changes. Our migratory patterns as human beings change. And so that is a deep sort of intersection point, a locked system that we have that we need to spend and focus more time on. Then experiential learning for me is an action orientation. So I think we have enough people in the world who can model and prototype and debate and simulate and theorize and all those things. What we need are young people who know how to take good, constructive action. And the action they need to take is in a difficult space. It's complex, that intersection point of human and natural systems. It's complex, it's systems driven, and it is ideologically contested. So what does good action then look like in that space? We need to be able to help students to be able to embrace complexity, not to expect simple 3-step solutions to things, because those don't exist in that complex space. We need them to understand how systems function, how they work, and then how to transform systems. And then we need them to understand and learn how to build bridges across ideological silos and not reinforce ideological silos. So this is hard work for any human being, let alone a 17 or 18-year-old. But that's what we are then endeavoring to do. So we then move towards now a sort of a developmental phase of creating this program. And I'm so fortunate to have one of the most talented educators that I know working with me as our vice principal of learning innovation. Her name is Maria. She's incredible. And so she's put together a great team to sort of work with and help to build this program. And what we've then created is in partnership with the International Baccalaureate. So we've partnered then with the IB in this, and we're doing this with them, but then created something called the Systems Transformation Pathway Leadership for Just Futures. And that's the program that we've spent a year creating.
Let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, and then we'll be right back. Why is IXL used in 95 of the top 100 U.S. school districts? Because it works. Research across 45 states showed that IXL schools outperform other schools on state tests. With IXL, you get a personalized online learning and teaching solution that helps you improve achievement, empower teachers, track progress, and more. This one platform for K-12 helps teachers accomplish what normally would require dozens of other tools. For example, as students practice skills, IXL automatically adapts to ensure each learner is always supported and challenged at the right level. IXL also provides every student with a personalized learning plan to help them close knowledge gaps effectively. One of my favorite things about IXL is their personalized test prep tool. For exams like the SAT and ACT, IXL will analyze a student's most recent score and generate a custom list of skills to help them boost their scores. If you want to take the load off of your teachers so they can do their best work, IXL can help. Learn more at IXL.com/PM today. Are you ready for a tool that can help you elevate engagement and foster a culture of care and connection within your organization while also saving you time? Introducing Libra, your gateway to turning those culture-building insights into action. Discover how Libra transforms the way you engage with your team. Imagine integrating all your engagement efforts with platforms like Outlook or Gmail into one seamless experience. With Libra, you focus on people, not software. Celebrate the achievements that make your team unique, from personal milestones to professional accomplishments. Ensure you and your team have the means to meet their connection goals, fostering a workplace where everyone feels valued and understood. Don't let another day pass where engagement is just another item on your to-do list. With Libra, embark on a journey to increase efficiency, improve engagement, and cultivate a caring workplace. Ready to see the difference? Request a demo today at librahq.com. That's LEBRAHQ.com, and take the first steps towards a workplace where everyone feels connected and cared for. Libra, where engagement meets genuine care. So let me pause there for just a moment because I want to respond to a couple of things you said. First of all, Naheed, I spent a lot of time thinking about the youth whom we're serving, and I know that especially I'm going to talk about Western populations for just a moment. A lot of our Gen Z students have a lot in common when it comes to the values that they hold, the anxieties that are particular to this generation. But what I love about the philosophical underpinnings of what you guys are moving toward here is how you actually are looking through the lens of this generation and asking yourself the question, how can we respond to the human systems that we see that are broken or that need improvement? How do we look at the natural systems, the sustainability areas that need to be addressed? And then how do we apply that with experiential learning and action? So we're giving students the resources, the capacity, and the environment in which to actually address the things that are most important to them. And so, first of all, thank you for having values that so clearly connect to what you know students are yearning for. Now, I want to get really practical because this systems transformation pathway is more than a philosophical framework. You have a specific discipline for how this looks for students. So talk to us a little bit about that. And now, because I know as Principal Matters listeners, we have a lot of listeners here who they build master schedules and they work on systems. And as we're recording this, we're getting ready to step into a new year. This will actually come out after the new year, but people are already thinking about their next year or their next 2 or 3 years in learning. So talk a little bit about what this actually looks like for the students who participate in terms of the cohorts, the impacts, and the applications.
Mm-hmm. Great. So we spent last year, 2022, 2023, developing the program in collaboration with the IB, but importantly, with students. So we had our second year students who would never actually see the course itself, dedicate their time and energy and effort towards helping to build the course, because we knew that if we did it on our own, we would fall short of the mark of what was needed, because our student voice is integral and they understand what they need. So that was an important design principle for us. What we then have designed is a 2-year course as part of the IB diploma. Takes away 2 of their 6 courses. For those who know the IB diploma, it's 6 courses plus something called Theory of Knowledge and Extended Essay, and CAS, which is their sort of co-curricular program. That's the totality of the IB diploma. This takes away 2 of their 6 formal academic courses and replaces it with the systems transformation pathway. So it's not an add-on, but it's a replacement. We just finished selecting a few months ago our inaugural cohorts. We've actually just launched in September of 2023. And the beginning part of the program is a cohort-based program where the students come together and do about 100 hours or so of understanding systems and how systems function and how we think about systems. So we start with a mini unit on narratives and the way in which we look at narratives to help to tell stories and fundamentally to help to shape human behavior within a system. We then look at complex adaptive systems and looking at the economy and climate as 2 sort of domains that we're looking at and helping students understand how you map systems and how you analyze systems, how you look at them and how you sort of put them down and begin to digest what they look like and how they function. We then go into a mini unit on power and the way in which power sits in a system and where it resides and where the nodes of power are and how do you take and give power and how do you work with power. Important for our young people to understand. We then look at othering, bridging, and belonging as ideas around community and how it is that if we think about a just future, what does it mean to create a future where no one is left behind, that we understand the importance of the totality of humanity and indeed beyond humanity, our ideas of human beings, and extend our sort of circle of compassion and care and understanding beyond just human beings. We then begin to look at things like regenerative leadership and the way in which our young people engage in this work, and how do they care for themselves in what they are doing. So that comprises in many ways the sort of first bit. Then what happens is students go into areas of impact, and there are 4 areas of impact that we've identified as part of the program. So one is food systems. Then second is energy systems. Third is biodiversity. And fourth is mass human migration. So those are 4 sets of systems that already exist. There's already an abundance of research and movement globally around these things. And so it makes sense for us to tap into what's already existing and what's already important. And at the same time, there are 4 systems that are relevant to our physical location and to our school itself. So we pick those intentionally that way. So students then, about 6 of them, there's 24 in the course, so 6 allocated roughly per area of impact. And now they'll spend the sort of next 14, 15 months in that area of impact, where they learn about that system, how it functions, applying what they learned in the earlier part of the course to this particular now part of the course. And this section of the course is punctuated by 2 what we're calling interventions. The first is called the self-directed intervention that will take place in a home context. So as we have students in this particular cohort, 24 of them from 21 different countries, when they go, home in quotes, in the summer time after between our first and second year, they will then engage in the self-directed intervention, where essentially they will apprentice themselves to systems transformation work that's already being done in that home community of theirs, let's say in food systems, for example, and they will work alongside people in community already doing it. They're not creating a problem. This is not sort of saviorism. This is pretending like a 17-year-old will come in and transform some sort of system in a couple of days in their home context. It's to amplify the work that somebody else is already doing. Learning from them and contributing in some way, being of service where there is need to them, to really experience what systems transformation can look like. They then come back from that summer experience into their second year, and they harness that learning between the 6 of them that they have gained. They digest, they share, and they think about how they can iterate, if you will, on their learning that way. And then they engage in what's called the collaborative intervention. Let's imagine again in food systems, where now they'll apprentice themselves to a movement or to change that's already taking place in Wales around food. And they will again work to amplifying the work that is already taking place now collaboratively in a group of 6. And there's a pretty significant amount of time allocated to this project. It's something like 90 hours, times 6 individuals. So it's a pretty significant portion of work in practice. So what they're doing is they're taking the theory of what they learned in the beginning part of the course and applying it twice over the course of their time, getting feedback along the way, really working in real life situations, applying that work and sort of giving of themselves in that kind of way. And then we come towards the end of the course where they're now synthesizing and building a portfolio and evaluating themselves and their peers against a sort of a criteria, competency-based type of model. And then we end the course with something that we're calling the Festival of What Works. And that's something that we would share with our entirety of our community to celebrate the work that's been done, acknowledging the things that we tried and perhaps didn't work, but then also really celebrating the things that have gone well and that we can see could be useful tools to pass down to the next generation of students to consider using in their future bits of work. So that's a snapshot of what the course looks like in its totality.
I love that. And thank you for the conciseness, because I know that even if for the last 8 or 10 minutes you've been giving us a snapshot of that you're talking about 2 years of academic work here that's available for students who are participating in these cohorts that are learning both from curriculum, but also from experience by stepping into those areas of impact, and then being a part of apprenticeships, being a part of collaborative teams, and then figuring out how to bring that back and celebrate what's working. Naheed, I know that this process has been long in the launching, and that you are now beginning this new systems transformation pathway. So I want to ask you a couple of questions as we wrap up. One of those is the first question I want to ask is for those that are IB diploma schools themselves. how did you make this work within that context? And then the follow-up I'm going to have for that is for listeners who may not be in that kind of program, some advice you have for anyone thinking about innovative programs. But let's take the first group first. For anybody who has an IB program, what were some of the partnerships that you had to develop to make this happen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. And sometimes it comes down to fortuitous, good luck. Part of it is understanding how systems work and function, and part of it is some hard work and just collaborative engagement. And so the IB diploma, for those who are IB schools, will know that it's obviously undergone changes over time, but they've been, let's call them fringe changes of improvement, continuous improvement. And what I was looking for was a step change, and fortunate to find some really strong partnership in the leadership of the IB, willing to try something new and to experiment a little bit and step outside what is a really successful product. I can see it from the IB's lens that it's hard to play with something that has been really successful globally. And so managing to find an opportunity to find win-win situations and scenarios, and leveraging on strengths that both institutions have to be able to work in partnership. So I would say it was a pretty unique set of circumstances that allowed us to arrive at this opportunity that has now been shared in its sort of concept with a couple of other schools around the world as well. So while we're the first ones to be doing it at this very moment in time, there'll be some other schools that will be coming online with similar kinds of experiments next year, and then again the year after that. I'm hoping that in sort of roughly the 2-year time horizon, that this program will become available to other schools to be able to take. It's slightly outside my realm of direct control. The IB is probably the main decision maker in this, but that's what I'm hoping for. So there'll be opportunity for other schools to take this on, maybe in 2025 or 2026 at that time frame. For those who are not IB schools, do you want to jump to that right now?
Yeah, I was going to also say that at the end of our conversation today, Naheed, I'm going to ask you to share your contact information, because I know that for anyone out there who is in an IB program, they may already be thinking about, like, well, let me know more. How can I be one of those experimental schools in the future, or how can I discover more? So I'm looking forward to connecting you with anyone that's already has those programs. But yes, speak to those listeners who may be considering innovative programs in their schools that aren't a part of an IB diploma program, but because this is one of the things I enjoyed when I talked to you, is understanding the lessons that you've learned in beginning new initiatives. So go there for a few minutes and just talk about what are some of the common lessons you've learned in implementing new initiatives that can apply for any leader.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first thing is to build alignment. So you understand, as a school leader, where does power sit in that system? Where does allyship sit in that system? And how do you begin to build consensus around those groups? So how do you work with your board, for example, and ensure that your, as a leader, risk appetite in alignment with what the board's risk appetite is? How do you foresee what the challenges are going to be, and how do you begin to mitigate them from the beginning? How do you identify those educational innovators in your own community who will help to be partners in leading this work? How do you identify the structural gaps that you have on your leadership team, where this is going to sit? Because you can't add it on to somebody else's already full plate and workload. So how do you get the structure in alignment to allow you to trampoline, if that makes sense? So that's the one piece that I would advise as a beginning. I would then also say, in parallel, how do you ensure that you develop your why? How do you be really clear about what your purpose is as you engage and begin to engage in that work? What is the aspiration that you are having? And let it be driven somehow genuinely from the values that your organization, that you, the leader, have. So having a compelling vision that is grounded in something inspirational, material, connected to your institution, I think is critical. So it's not innovating for the sake of innovating. So I think that's also really, really important. And then it's about thinking about where's that then going to sit in that ecosystem of a school that you have. Is it a co-curricular program, or is it a core academic program? And then what are you going to replace, or how are you going to create space for it in what you're doing? So I think that becomes at the beginning, at the outset, really important for me, and what we've learned. I would then think a bit about the systems then that function and that operate. So, for example, as you think a bit about the curriculum and perhaps some of the national or state based sort of requirements and constraints that you're working with, how do you work within that, or indeed how do you find ways to work around it or on top of it, or overrun it if you can? How do you think about what that next step is for your students if many of them go off to university or college? How do you think about those systems, which can sometimes be equally stubborn? And how do you work around and with and on top of those things as well? So it's about understanding the nature of the landscape and really being clear about that as you then begin to develop around the parameters. So as an example for me, I was at the outset pitching the idea of taking 1/3 of the curriculum time away and creating something different. That would be 2 courses worth. And my calculus in my mind was that from a university standpoint, if our students are going to do then 4 traditional courses of the IB diploma of the 6, 4 would still be in that traditional realm. And if they had to potentially forego the IB diploma, which was at the beginning stages, what I was imagining would have to be the case before we partnered with the IB, I said to myself, okay, if they take 3 higher level subjects, which is sort of part of their 6, they do 3 standard level, 3 higher level. So if they keep the 3 higher level subjects, and if we think about what universities accept otherwise, they accept, in the UK where we're based, they accept 3 A-level courses for university. So I was saying to myself, okay, if they accept 3 A-level courses, then why wouldn't they accept 3 higher level courses, which is, actually more rigorous than an A-level courses? So in a comparison standpoint, they would then have the 3 high level courses plus a standard level course plus this new thing that we're creating. So why would a university say no to that? So that was the risk calculus that I was doing in my mind and trying to find ways to mitigate. So which is why I said 1/3 of the curriculum time and not half the curriculum time, for example. And so that's the kind of calculus that I think you'll need to do as an educator who wants to think of things in a more radical kind of way, and weigh it against the risk that's there.
Naheed, I'm just going to repeat back to you some of the things that you just said to me for the benefit of our listeners too. But when you're thinking about those new initiatives, first of all, just the understanding the complexities of systems and being able to work within that complexity for the outcomes that would be most beneficial for the system that you're in. And that comes back to some of those other areas that you said, knowing your why and your purpose, understanding what's unique about your school and setting, working within the values and offerings and the governance that you're a part of, and then looking at that that your own system of transformation that you in doing that calculus of risk and benefit, but then also making sure that you've got the people and the time and the resources together to begin to be able to launch something that's going to work, and the support for that too, which are the ingredients that you've been describing in today's conversation. So first of all, just congratulations. I do want to ask one follow-up. As you imagine this new program let's take it through the eyes of one student. What are you most excited about when you think about the future for one student who's coming through your school that could be a participant in this new system that you're implementing?
Yeah. What I'm excited about for them to get a radically different educational experience that is fundamentally transdisciplinary. So there are no disciplines attached to it. In fact, it's team taught. So there are 4 teachers who are teaching the course. And right now we've got 2 anthropologists, a geographer, and a marine biologist who are the 4 teachers teaching the course. So I'm excited for that student who gets to think about the nature of the problem first, rather than the disciplinary constraints and lenses and frameworks first. So it starts with what's real, and then you take the academics that are required to support their understanding and you bring that. And what it allows is for the student to bring their whole self to that learning, because it says, you may be from a totally different part of the world. What's relevant to you? What bodies of knowledge and research and evidence and so on are important for you to pull into your academic experience, rather than being pushed down your throat by some other external authority that believes this is what you need to know. So I'm excited about the bespokeness and the opportunities that exist there. I'm excited about them seeing things in whole systems and how whole systems intersect with each other, and seeing the world therefore as a whole and not in these sort of compartmentalized fragments. I'm excited about them feeling respected as a young person, that we see them as fundamentally capable of understanding and learning these big ideas and concepts, and not pretend like they're too young for this, they're too immature for this. No, they're ready for this kind of learning. I'm excited for them to be able to take theory and to practice it multiple times, and to be able to get feedback from themselves, self-driven feedback, peer-driven feedback, teacher-driven feedback, and community-driven feedback, because they're engaging communities, and us actually, actively seeking out feedback on what they're doing in that community for their benefit. And I'm excited about them doing it together. I'm excited about them embracing collaboration as part of the work, and not getting in trouble for collaborating, right? Because actually, all of our assessments and all of our high school experiences, generally speaking, you get in trouble for collaborating. Indeed, if there's an exam that you're sitting, you shall not engage with any other human being in this act of sort of, putting down all that you know on this piece of paper over 2 hours. And this looks fundamentally different. There's no exams here. There's no essays here. It is meant to represent what is more real in the world that our students will face when they exit high school. And so to be reflective of that. And so I'm excited for them to be able to experience learning in that much more genuine, integral way, and what that means for them.
What a beautiful picture, and a vision for what you want for students. And Naheed, as we're talking, I'm just thinking about how much I love this work, because through the podcast and through the work that I get to do with leaders in many different kinds of places and settings, for some reason, I'm thinking of a friend of mine who leads a school in rural Ohio, in an area where the students that come to that school are hands-on developing skills involved in construction and welding. In that community, they recognize the systems in which they live, and they've come up with innovative, creative ways. They've built this entire outdoor classroom facility so that students can be learning those skills that they're going to be employing in the industry area in which they live. And I'm just thinking about the uniqueness of leaders who look at the place where they're at, and the students that they have, and the values that they consider to be important to them, and connecting those values with all of those experiences, making learning more than theory, making it something that's applicable right in the community where they live, but also in the community where they're going to live. So thank you for what you're doing in your community. How can others learn more about UWC, or how can they connect with you if they want to find out more about the program that you're doing, or they would love to communicate with you?
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that invitation. And perhaps I would just add, before I share that contact information, that for me, my larger purpose, and our collective larger purpose, is to make this as much of a public good as we can. I don't believe that education should be proprietary. And I believe that if we create something that works and that is going to be of benefit to our students in the world, that it's our responsibility to give it to whoever wants it. And as widely as possible to share it. So that's my aim and ambitions. In that way, we would absolutely invite others who want to learn more about what we're doing. And while we may not be at a stage yet where we can, share more broadly, that's definitely our intention. And so you can have a look at our website. UWCatlantic.org is the website. Do have a look there. There's some further information there, or you can always email me if you like, Naheed, Naheed Bardai, Bardai at UWCatlantic.org. And please connect that way, or on LinkedIn. You can also find me there, and happy to be in touch with others.
Well, Naheed Bardai, it's been such a privilege to reconnect with you, and I will include that contact information in the show notes. Thank you for the opportunity. Any other parting words that you want to say as we wrap up today?
Just that I have been bolstered by the inspiration and just ingenuity of many others. And so this kind of work is not solo work. It is together work. It is collaborative work. And so we need more and more people connected together to be able to really have an impact in the way that we know we need to in the space of education. And so it's just to acknowledge those who are already doing work out there, and to keep going and find partners and find people who can support you, and we'll do this together.
Well, Principal Matters listeners, as you think about the kinds of transformational systems that you want to create for your students, the kind of meaningful learning that you want to create, thank you for the time that you got to spend today, that you took to spend today with Naheed Bardai and with me. And Naheed Bardai, thank you for all that you've done to be a great leader for your school. And Principal Matters listeners, thank you for doing what matters. We'll talk to you again soon. You'll find free resources like this one at williamdparker.com. Subscribe for our free weekly newsletter, which contains bonus material, and also check out the links for Grow Academies, Masterminds, Executive Coaching, and Keynote presentations for my books, as well as for Principal Matters Associates. You can find out more under our speakers tab at williamdparker.com. Thank you for learning together, and thank you for doing what matters.